All right, these are the answers for the problems from yesterday. So if you watched the videos, hopefully this wasn't too bad. I'm going to try to factor. So for the first first expression, okay, there's nothing really you can factor. For the second, though, it is a trinomial with a coefficient it's greater than 1. So our a is greater than 1. So we have to do a times c, get 6. Factors of 6 that add up to 5 are 3 and 2. So I know that I break it up and say that it is 2n squared plus 3n plus 2n, okay, plus 3. Again, I use 2 and 3 because those are the factors of a times c that added up to my b term 5 here, okay? GCF here, GCF here. Okay, I know it's a little floppy, but what's in the parentheses is both the same. So get n plus 1, 2n plus 3. Okay, now I just have to factor the bottom. Okay, their difference of squares. So I would get 3 times 3 gives me my first square, 9. 2n times 2n gives me 4n squared. Because it's difference of squares, we just make 1 plus, 1 minus, and we are good, okay? Now that everything's factored, I can go ahead and start canceling some stuff out. N plus 1 and n plus 1. 2n plus 3 and 3n plus 2. Because, yes, they're opposite, or not opposite, they are different. So it's 2n plus 3 and then it's 3 plus 2n. But hopefully at this point, you guys remember that with addition, it's commutative, which means the order does not matter. And then our last thing is crossing out the 3 minus 2n and the 2n minus 3. This will cross out to a negative 1, and we've talked about this before, but again, if it's two terms, opposite, not opposite, one's, 5 minus 3 and one's 3 minus 5, it's always going to cross out to negative 1. And if you watch the other videos, you would see that. So anyway, and that was just showing you why it turned into negative 1. But if you're looking at your problem, the only thing left from all this, everything really canceled out, and your final answer is just negative 1. That's the only thing that's left, okay? All right, next I'm going to factor this. I see that my a is 1, which means what are the factors of negative 28 that add up to negative 3? Okay, because it's division, we do keep, change, flip. So now instead of 2x minus 14 and the 2, we're going to switch, they're going to flip, okay? But I'm going to sort of flip it as well as take out a GCF, just kind of all at once. So now the x minus 7 goes, cancels out. The 2 and the 2 cancels out. And I'm just left with, up top, x plus 4, and on the bottom I'm just left with 6x. And that's my answer. I can't cross out anything else. All right, now for 18, I see difference of squares. So I get 1 plus h, 1 minus h. On the bottom, I'm going to factor out a 2. And if I factor out a 2, I actually get a easier to factor trinomial. Oops. That up. Okay, so now I have 2, that's my GCF, and now I have a that's 1, so my factors of negative 6 that add up to negative 5 would be negative 6 and positive 1, all right? So again, my factors of negative 6 that add up to my b term there. Okay. All right, so that's all factored. Now again, since it's division, I'm going to change it to multiplication as long as I flip. And again, as I flip, I'm just going to take out a GCF. So now I just got to go cross some stuff out. So h plus 1 and 1 plus h cancel out. Again, because it's addition, the order doesn't matter. They're both the same. But for the 1 minus h and h minus 1, that would cancel out to a negative 1, which we just talked about in the last problem. So if you want to go back and look at that, you can. And then I have a 6 and a 2 gives me a 3. So up top, I'm left with negative 3, right? Because I'm going to multiply these two. And on the bottom, I have 2 and, h minus 6, which just gives me negative 3 to h minus 12. You cannot simplify the 3 and the 12. Again, look back at the other videos or, hop on one of the Zooms one of the times if you're still confused as to why you can't cross out the 3 and the 12.